Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss situation in Ukraine on the 10th of July. Today we have a lot of interesting updates, so let's start. And today we are going to start with our Artyomovsk or Bakhmut area, this town. As you can see according to this map, there are a lot of icons of shelling, of storming, and so on. If we're talking about updates on this map, we see that some things on this map is not updated. There are some differences between the West sources map and the Russian sources map. And if we're talking about the main differences, the main differences are a town by the name of Spornaya, Grigorivka, and Bilogorovka. These three towns is the main difference in this area. Not just this, and the fourth is Klinova. These four towns. Klinova, that located right on the east from Bakhmut. Sporna, that located on the east from Zvanovka and south east from Seversk. And Bilogorovka and Grigorivka, these four towns. If we're talking about the Russian sources map, Klinova is under the Russian control, and not just under the Russian, not just in the gray zone, but it's already marked with the red color and the green border, showing that this town is totally under the Russian control. If we're talking about Sporna, the same picture, this town is marked in red color and is already under the Russians. If we're talking about Bilogorovka, the same picture, and yesterday we got some confirmation from the Russian sources that this town was taken by the Russians. But as you can see according to this map, this town is still colored as a territory under Ukrainian control. There is a border like on the west of this town, showing the gray border, showing that this town is in the gray zone. So as I understand, maybe the Russians took control, or maybe some part of this town, at least like east part of this town is under Russians, but there were no confirmation about total control over this town, like confirmed confirmation that we don't. So there, like, we don't have no doubts that this town is under Russians. If we're talking about the map of disposition of forces, we see that this map shows at least that something like some part of east part of this town is under the Russian control. So we understand that something is happening there, that the Russians are pushing in this direction, and maybe in a day or two we're gonna see like the update of this map on this map of disposition forces and the Russian sources map, and after that maybe we are going to see the same updates on the West sources map. But as you can see, there is no changes according to the territory updates. So we see that the front line is stable if we're talking about the map, about the lines. But if we're talking about the battles, there are very heavy clashes all along the front line. And if we're talking about the Russians, they're trying to reduce the Ukrainians as much as possible. And the most bloody battle, the most heavy battle is on the south, in the area between Bakhmut, Toretsk, and Ugledarskaya power plant Klinova. So I'll mark this area. This is the main area with the most heaviest and most dangerous battles you can ever imagine yourself. There are so many losses. There are so many losses from both sides. So many people. So this triangle, there are so many losses from both sides. If we're talking about the Ukrainians, they are not confirming about the number of Russian losses, but believe me, I'm sure that they have. I don't know about the number, but if we're talking about the Ukrainians, they have very big losses on this front line. And the battle for the south, we can say the battle for Ugledarskaya power plant started somewhere in the middle of this week. The Russians were trying, and they are still trying, to encircle Ugledarskaya power plant. And the main idea of the Russians, of course, to establish control, to take under control these three towns: Vershina, Zaitsevo, Kadema. So this is the main purpose of the Russians in this area, and they're not even trying to calculate anything and everything they have, just with one purpose: to take control over this blue cloud and to cut the Ukrainian forces in the south, to encircle them. Just for better picture, let's update Dolomitne, because this town, this small block of this town, is also under the Russians. This is the main idea. And the Russians did a lot of things to develop themselves and to achieve significant success in this area. If we're talking about the reports, this morning we got some confirmations that there is, according to the Russian sources, there is some heavy clashes around Veselaya Dolina and Opitne. So as you can see, these towns is the suburbs of Bakhmut. So this is like already a town from Bakhmut. But I don't think that the Russians were trying to develop any offensive operations towards Bakhmut. I suppose that the Russians were trying just to fix the Ukrainians, who were moving and heading towards this Ugldarska power plant to reinforce forces located in this area. So, as I understand, this is the current picture of the situation. Klinova is under the Russians, Dolomita is under the Russians, and the area between Zaitsev, Veselaya Dolina, Akadema is in the gray zone, and nobody knows what's happening there. And as I see this situation in this triangle, reminds me of the situation that we saw in Belogorovka. It's like a very nice example of a situation where the very heavy clashes and very heavy battle were. If you remember, the Russians were trying to cross the river in this back, and they were very bloody battle. The Russians had a lot of losses. They were forced to retreat, and this battle started somewhere on the 1st of May, and the final picture and the first confirmation, some information we got just by 13th of May. So there were like 13 days, 2 weeks of bloody clashes, and nobody knew about anything about this area. There were no information, just like a few pictures from the satellite about the pontoon bridges that were established there. So we were expecting something, but like on the 14th of May, we got information that the Russians were defeated there. And the most interesting about that battle, that neither Ukrainians nor the Russian sources were saying anything, but there were something. So, as I understand, the same situation we can see right now near Bakhmut, Toretsk, Ugledarska power plant in this area. I analyzed a lot of updates, a lot of pieces of information from both sides, and now let's try to discuss and let's try to build something according to information we have. So, as I told you, the Russians started the battle for Ugledarska power plant a very long time ago, but we can say that starting the middle of this week, they started something like active phase of offensive operation, trying to encircle and to reduce the Ukrainian forces as much as possible. Now let's take a look one more time on the map of disposition of the forces. If you remember, when I first time showed you this map, there was just, as I told you yesterday, there was just two icons in this area. There was like 13th Mechanized Brigade, right exactly on the area of Ugledarska power plant, and the second one was this 118th Mountain Battalion and 10th Mountain Brigade in this area, who is protecting Artyomovsk or Bakhmut. By the way, as you can see, Klinova and the area between Klinova and Veselaya Dolina is under Russian control, you see, according to the map of disposition. So that means that the Russians are very close to Bakhmut, to Opitne and Veselaya Dolina. So that maybe it's really true. And furthermore, as you can see, Vershina, this one small town, is also under the Russian control according to this map. This is Vershina. Where is Vershina? Vershina. This Vershina. So we can say that there is a lot of truth in information about the battle, and as you can see, the Russians are pushing the Ukrainians heavily. So what happened during this week, and what is the result? So as I told you, just two icons, so just two types of forces were here to enforce, but these forces receive a lot of damage, and they had big number of losses during this week. So that's why the Ukrainian forces decided to reinforce this position with 72nd Mechanized Brigade. This brigade previously was located somewhere in area between Kramatorsk, Konstantinovka, Artyomovsk, somewhere here, and their main base, their main headquarters was somewhere near Chasov Yar, this area. So there was like something like a backup. But as I see, the Ukrainians were forced to move their backup forces right to the zero line, trying to stop the Russians in this area, trying not to allow the Russians to encircle the Ugledarska power plant. To tell the truth, I don't understand why are they trying to hold and keep this area. Maybe just like the major scenario for the Ukrainians not to allow the Russians to take any other meter. Because if you know, the Ukrainian military authorities announced that the Lysychansk battle and the Lysychansk losses and from the Ukrainian side they promised that was their last loss in this military special operation, and they promised that the Russians won't take even they won't take any other town like Lysychansk in the future. So we can say that the Ukrainians promise that the Russians won't take Seversk and Bakhmut or Artyomovsk. So the Ukrainians moved this 72nd Mechanized Brigade. Of course, all these movements, the Russians are able to spot them. They have a lot of satellites, they have drones, they have their spies in this area. So of course they understand, they saw everything, they understood everything. So that's why starting from Friday, the Russians started to work against this 72nd Mechanized Brigade. And that Friday the Russians did artillery strike towards Artyomovsk, this towards Bakhmut, towards, if you take a look at the Russian source map, towards Bakhmut, this town, and they destroyed the warehouse of that 72nd Mechanized Brigade. So it was like the first signal for the Ukrainians, and we can say that the Russians start hunting after these 72nd Mechanized Brigades. The Russians are working very interesting. So they try to find out the movements of their enemy, and they're not like shelling everything they can. They have a lot of targets on the territory of Ukraine, but they try to shell exactly the those forces, their warehouses, their command centers, exactly of those forces who is involved into battle, and try to destroy and reduce them as much as possible. So starting this Friday, as soon as the Ukrainians moved the 72nd Brigade to reinforce the south of Lugansk power plant, the Russians start shelling their warehouses and destroyed some warehouses. And by this Saturday, the losses of that 72nd Brigade was up to 30%. Of this mechanized brigade. So as you can see, it's not critical. Of course, it's not 60% or 70% of if you remember, we got some report during this week that the Russians did a lot of damage to some other brigades, or it's not the same losses as we know about the losses of 72nd Assault Brigade, who was reduced till 80% at all, so that's a lot. So, but 30% is also big losses, because this is like mechanized brigade, and we know that the Ukrainians lost a lot of vehicles and equipment in Lysychansk agglomeration. Maybe you saw a video of this parade of the Ukrainian losses of totally fixed equipment and so on. So we understand that there is a very big lack of equipment on the line between Seversk and Bakhmut. So by the Saturday, the losses of that 72nd Brigade was up to 30%. And furthermore, if you remember, during the first presentation of this map, I told you that I have one big question, that we didn't saw any icons of artillery in this area. And as I can see, during these days, the Ukrainians moved some reinforcement of the 22nd Artillery Brigade to this area. Furthermore, this is not just like regular artillery. Of course, this artillery is reinforced with the US howitzers, like 100 M777. There was 155 millimeters howitzers. The Ukrainians did a very great and very good job to concentrate and to reinforce this area with the shells for this artillery, with these artillery systems and so on. And according to the Russian Ministry of Defense Information, according to their rockets impacts, I understand that this 26th Artillery Brigade was stretched among the towns. Of course, some forces were located in Chasov Yar, some forces were located in Konstantinovka, and some forces were located in Druzhkivka. It's 22nd Artillery Brigade. So that means that artillery forces, artillery equipment is the major equipment in major forces, major units in this brigade. So that means that there are a lot of artillery systems in this brigade. Of course, we understand that if we're talking about the same mechanized brigades, the tank brigade, we understand that all these brigades had some groups of artillery systems in their brigades, but it's like few numbers. But we're talking about the total full-blooded brigade, there are a lot of them. So they stretch their forces all along the towns. Of course, all these movements were spotted by the Russians, and because there are not much way how to move forces in this area. If we take a look at this map, there's just one railroad that leads here, and just few big roads like the road between Pokrovsk and Konstantinovka, and from Drabili towards Kramatorsk. So everything were spotted, and the Russians found out the hangars where the Ukrainians tried to hide these howitzers and its shells. And during Saturday, Friday, and Sunday, we got more and more reports from the Russian sources about shelling this area. If we're talking about the Slavians, this morning we got a report from the Russian military authorities that they destroyed warehouse of these howitzers, and the losses were around 100 soldiers. I think it was like something like a guard of these, maybe it was a units from this 22nd Assault Brigade, maybe it just was the people who were protecting the warehouses. But they, during this impact, the Russians destroyed around 1,000 of these shells for these M777 howitzers. I can't tell you if we can believe to this number, but if the Russians are saying something like this, that means that we can believe that something happened. So we will follow this situation as well. Furthermore, during this impact, the Russians destroyed the warehouse with the missiles for the Ukrainians, MRI systems like Grad, all Soviet systems of multi-rocket systems. Missile systems. So as I see, the Russians started hunting for the 72nd Brigade, and furthermore, today I think that all of you have seen the picture of the rocket impact towards the Chasov Yar, this town. There was a building. It was the building where it was, according to the Russian sources, during the previous months, this building was empty. But as soon as operation around Bakhmut started, the Ukrainians moved their forces, and it was something like the house where the Ukrainian soldiers were living. So, and this Chasov Yar is the main base of that 72nd Brigade. So that's why, as I understand, the Russians are trying to reduce this mechanized brigade as much as possible, because it's fresh-blooded, totally fully equipped, and so that's why the Russians were trying to reduce them, because they understand that this brigade on the south is a very big power, and this brigade on the south is not a game changer, but at least they can ruin the Russians' plan of encirclement of Uldarskaya power plant and their operation to reach the we can say the suburbs, or to reach the area for fire control of Toretsk and New York agglomeration. Furthermore, if we are talking about the projections for the next area on this front line, I think that we are not going to see very big territory expansions, because you see that the Ukrainians did reinforce this area heavily. Now they have a lot of mechanized brigades. There is first tank brigade in this area, and we haven't heard anything about this tank brigade, so I understand that they keep these forces for the worst period of time. So that's why there is still a lot of work to do. So as I understand, the Russians during the next week will try to reduce the Ukrainians and try to hunt their mechanized, motorized artillery and tank brigade during the further week. So as I understand, their main goal would be to ruin 72nd Brigade as much as possible. They will try to do something with this tank brigade that located on Artyomov Solidar, Bakhmut Solidar, and there are few motorized brigade in the area between Sporne and Kuzminovka. The Russians, the name of this town has been changed, and Perezhny, Kuzminovka, Zvanivka. So there are few motorized brigades in this area. So as I understand, the Russians will try to reduce this motorized brigade as well. And furthermore, the main target for the Russians, from the main hunting, they will try to do and to follow this 22nd Artillery Brigade with its howitzers and so on. And furthermore, we got more and more reports from the Ukrainian side that they started using their HIMARS that were supported and supplied by the US, and the Ukrainians are saying that they are very successful in this. If we're talking about the Russians, they They haven't confirmed every single case that Ukrainians told, but they have confirmed some of them. And if we take a look at the Russian sources map, you're gonna see that this is like the icon that, if you translate to English, it sounds like losses. We can say lost dead people, or dead, or the Russian lost. So as you can see, this icon is very far from the front line. It's very behind Donetsk. Let's calculate the destination. For example, from Avdiivka on Shakhtarsk, this one. Let's just calculate. So as you can see, it's 53 kilometers. And some sources are saying that that was the result of HIMARS attack, and that was a result, and that was attack towards the Russian warehouse. So as I can see, the Ukrainians are trying to use these HIMARS as much effective as possible, and we're gonna see in the very near future more and more updates about the situation. So for that's why those artillery brigades, those HIMARS systems, is the main target and the main projection for the further week. I don't think that the Russians are able to crush and to ruin the Ukrainians on Seversk, Bakhmut front line for the week. Maybe they can, and they will, of course, they will try. We're gonna see the further attempts to encircle Ugledarska power plant. I'm sure that we're going to see some updates about Grigorievka, and we're going to start see the picture battle for Serebryanka. Furthermore, some Russian sources, the same sources who told that there is a very heavy clashes around Veselaya Dolina and Opytna, it's already suburbs of Bakhmut. These sources also announced that some forces from Seversk has already retreated. The Ukrainians are not leaving this town totally, but some forces left this town, maybe with the same reason, to reinforce the south of Bakhmut, because as I see, the Ukrainians were expected that Seversk is the main area for the next clashes, but the most heaviest we can see on the south of this area. So the projection for the next week to encircle, for the Russian to encircle this area and to get and to take Serebryanka. I'm not sure about the entire taking of Seversk. If we're talking about Charlie Group, the forces located on the line between Bakhmut, Solidar, Yakovlevka, Belogorovka, and Berestova, of course, to put the final note about Sporne, Berestova, Belogorovka. So just to short the front line and to move their forces much closer to town Veselaya, Ivanodarivka, Vyimka, and to try to establish some fire control over the road. So I think that would be the picture for the next week if we're talking about this front line. If we're talking about Slaviansk, the same picture. The Russians need to clear their front, to short their front line around Mazanovka, Dolina, Bogorodichne. Today we got some confirmation from the Ukrainian side that they managed to push Russian back from Mazanovka. It's according to the military report. But if you remember, the Russians announced about taking this town a few days ago. Furthermore, they have already marked this area in red color. But maybe the Ukrainians were talking about the area around Mazanovka, but as I see, this town is still maybe in the gray zone. If Ukrainians includes this town in their report, that means that there is something there. So for the next week, the projection for the next week for the Russians in this area to give us the final confirmation of Mazanovka, Dolina, Bogorodichne. Maybe to give some more accurate information about Sidorova. If we're talking about the forces disposition in this area, there are not much forces. Mainly they're located in these forests, on these Sherwood forests, all along this territory. So I'm not sure that it's even possible to reduce them. They have some position where they're resting and sleeping in Slaviansk, but as I see, the Russians, maybe they haven't found them or something like this, because the Russians just are showing just the markets, just warehouses of the heavy equipment and shells and so on. Now let's talk a little bit about Kharkiv area. Today I got more and more confirmation and some more and more updates about Verkhny Saltov, Rubizhne and Stary Saltov, and the Ukrainians are expecting that the Russians will try to attack this area from three sides, from Ternova towards Verkhny Saltov, from, we can say, from Rubizhne towards Verkhney Saltov, and the Ukrainians are expecting the Russians to cross this river as well and to attack and to establish control over this area and to push the Ukrainians back, because you know that Ukrainians they have changed their tactic. We discussed this many times about the attack from forest. They have like three major new tactics starting this weekend. You can say four tactics. The first one is to attack the Russian from the forest, they allow them to enter some towns, some area. After that, they attack these forces from the green zone, we can say. The second tactic is that we see more and more females on the front line. I have seen a lot of videos, pictures, updates, how the Ukrainians are using females. It's snipers, it's tanks, as a snipers, as in engineers, just in infantry, as howitzers forces, and so on. So more and more females. And we discussed yesterday that there are around 1 million soldiers. And if the Ukrainians are going to mobilize females, I'm sure that by autumn we are going to see another 200,000 of females on the front line. We understand that if we're talking about 1 to 5,000 of females, of course, it's not a game changer. But believe me, if we're going to see 200,000 of female on the front line, it will be a game changer anyway. They can hold a gun. They can run vehicles, and they can give success. I'm not saying that they are able to replace a male soldier, but I'm sure that in years they will be able even to do this, because it's a person, it's a man, it's a woman. No matter if you train this person, sooner or later females can be even better soldiers than the males anyway. So this is the second tactic. The third one, that the Ukrainians started to terrorize the Russians all along the front line. As you can see, there are very heavy shelling. The Russians are trying to shell the border because the Ukrainians sent a lot of guerrillas, a lot of commandos, and they terrorized the area all along the front line. It's also a very bad situation. We discussed this situation also. If you remember, I showed you that if we try to, for example, calculate the length of the border, we see that it's around 477 kilometers. According to the defense standards, you need at least, if we're talking about the active defense, it's around 20 kilometers per 1 BTG. It's in the case if your enemy have a lot of forces, and these forces are always try to attack you. There are no regular forces from the Ukrainian side, just the commandos, guerrilla forces. So I think that we can reduce or increase the standards, for example, till 40 kilometers per 1 BTG, or maybe 30. Anyway, the Russians need at least 10 or 15 BTGs in this area to be on the safe side. And that's a lot. That's a lot. Of course, this job might be done by the Russian regular forces, but in this case, there would be losses among the young people, 18, 19, 20 years old, and I'm not sure that it's very good for the Russians, for their media. So that's why I'm sure that they're try to find a solution for this situation, and I'm sure that it's like a projection for the next week for the Russians. They need to do something how to solve this issue with this terrorism attack against their territory of those. There are a lot of losses in this area, not just among civilians, also among the military forces. Anyway, they need to do something. If we're talking about Kharkiv, of course, to take Stary Saltov, Verkhney Saltov, Rubizhne is the best picture for the Russians and the next projection. And the fourth tactic of the Ukrainians, they start using their HIMARS, and they start shelling the Russian warehouses. During this period of time, since the beginning, the Russians, we haven't heard and haven't seen some videos or pictures confirmation that the Russians' warehouses were destroyed. Maybe just a few of them, few updates, but not so massively as we can see right now. So that's why I think that the Russians need to think how to stretch their warehouses and not to accumulate a lot of equipment and shell at the same place at the same time. And of course, we're talking about the Ukrainians. They will use HIMARS more and more. And we know that in the new help, new support from the US. They're going to receive more HIMARS, and they are going to receive 300 kilometers rockets, missiles. So that's why the Russians will going to have more problems. So that's why they need to rebuild their logistic one more time, and they need to stretch their warehouses if they keep everything just at the same place. One update we got from Kherson area. If we take a look at the Russian sources map, there is no updates about this. But if we're talking about the West sources map, there were shelling, and the Ukrainians are saying that they managed to reach the Russian position. And of course, there wasn't. I haven't seen any confirmation video and photo. And if we're talking about the Ukrainian sources, they're saying that they managed to reach some base, Russian base, and that they managed to kill like hundreds of the Russians and so on, but without any confirmation of this situation on the front line. Anyway, that attack, as I understand, also was done by using the US HIMARS. So we see that there are just up to 12 HIMARS on the front lines, but they have already start doing some damage and problems for the Russians. So the main projection, the main goal for the Russians, to hunt the places where the Ukrainians are hiding those HIMARS. And that's it for today. Military Summary Channel reminds you that we condemn any violence in Ukraine. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good weekend. Bye bye.